So this is a required course, and so you may find yourself asking, why is this required? How is research methods relevant to me in my career goals or in my academic interests? And so this is going to be a short, brief overview of different ways in which research may come up in your own professional experiences, and it'll help you write your first assignment, which is a reflection memo on how research might be influential or positively impact your own experience. So based off of the survey, a lot of you all want to go into social work, counseling, whether that be psychological counseling or substance abuse treatment or reentry. And so that's great because research comes up in a lot of these spaces about what are the best practices, what are the best methods of intervening, the best therapies. And so a lot of nonprofits that work and provide services to the state have to sort of promote their services and show that there's data behind the services that they provide. So they need to sort of show that people's lives have improved. And in order to do that, you need to have some research technical skills to prove that. A lot of other of you wanted to go into like more corrections or policing, and especially in policing, there's a lot of crime arrest data analysis for where cops should be placed. Hotspot policing is a really popular strategy for policing, so there will be a lot of data analysis on like what specific neighborhoods in your area of policing are needing more attention. And so that's a way in which research might come up. And there's a lot of data entry in being a police officer. You have to input a lot of paperwork in regards to your interactions with people on a daily basis. And then some of you also said that you'd like to go into nonprofit research or be a lawyer or paralegal or public defender. So there's a lot of policy that gets implemented in the criminal courts, like risk assessment or like specialized courts like drug courts and whatnot. So if you're a lawyer, you may engage with that, and you may have to really understand the new policies that are coming out and whether or not there's research to back that up. If you want to go into more of a think tank, research is going to be a massive portion of that. A lot of nonprofits that do policy analysis or criminal justice reform analysis, the people who work there have a lot of research background, because you need to be really good at reading what literature is already out there, and also sometimes even doing experiments and research on your own as well. So as I sort of talked about, we were going over ways research might come up in those professions. Some of research is to explain. A lot of research is to explain why things happen and to get at the root causes of things. So for example, crime, or why certain trends are sort of changing. For example, there's a large phenomenon in which younger generations are not buying houses. And so there's some research going into that to determine, okay, what is this trend and what's the root cause of this? Another purpose of research is just to explore a topic. So sometimes there are particular issues that come up that the public may not have been aware of prior. So for example, there's been a lot of public health research around risks for mothers as they give childbirth. There are a lot of racial disparities in that. And so when difficult topics like that get in the discourse of public debate, then there's sort of this push to explore what are the factors, what's the impact. Let's sort of get a baseline of what this problem is. And so it can be a really important step in defining a problem, is exploring exactly what it looks like. And it's helpful for people who write policy and legislation as well, because then there could be interventions that reduce the negative impacts. And especially if you're going into social work and like working directly with clients, there's a lot of descriptive research that happens. So you might share with people who are your funders or people who want to volunteer for your nonprofit organization what the demographics of the clientele you have are, and sort of like documenting their experiences. That way you can really show how your nonprofit is working and who you are working for. And a big aspect of research is application. So the policy world is huge, and there's lots of people, legislators, and program directors that really want to know what are the best interventions in comparing program results. And they also want to know, like, okay, we're considering implementing this law. What are the negative impacts of this law? Are there any unidentified challenges that we might come up against? And then there's also this other space of, all right, we implemented a law. How is it actually looking like on the ground? Is it the same as we had hoped for on paper? Or are there difficulties in implementation? So a lot of spaces of legislation, foundation and funding, they often want data-driven proposals and are more likely to give money to programs that have some component of data analysis or research skills to show that what they're doing is actually having an impact. And so I just put a couple of articles, sort of a preview based off of y'all's interests according to the survey. And so they're a bit, as you see, a lot of academic articles are written in a very jargony way. So this course is going to teach you how to read through these in a way that is less overwhelming and where you can sort of be critical of the methods and be in conversation with what the article is saying, not only understand it, but to be able to point out its strengths and weaknesses. So there's going to be a demo on like how to find these articles yourself. There's a whole world of data-driven analysis on a lot of the topics you might be interested in. So it's really exciting. So this is a preview. There's a big sector of therapy is cognitive behavioral therapy has been shown to have like pretty good outcomes for people who are incarcerated. So this is an article that explores that. And is sort of testing the effectiveness of that. And as you see, I've pulled the abstracts of these articles, and the abstracts are a great place for you to skim through and see, all right, is this article relevant to me or is it not? And whether or not you would like to read the article itself. It's sort of like the commercial of what a research article is. And then there's also things like annual reviews. So the annual reviews of different disciplines allow you to explore issues, and it's written by scholars who are sort of doing a review of literature. And so they give you a sense of what the current topics in academia are on these particular issues. And so this article in particular is giving strategies for how to improve the health outcomes of people in jail and prison. So as you see, this is an example of research for application. So it's for people to read and to try to implement these interventions in their own programs. Here's an article that tests the theory. So sometimes when we're doing research, we're also testing prior big theories that have been taught. And so labeling perspective is a criminal justice theory that thinks that when adolescents or youth are labeled in a particular way, then they're sort of confined to that identity and they're actually more likely to commit crimes. So that would change the way that we do criminal justice, because then we would not want to be labeling people as soon as they come in. We would be wanting to promote more diversionary programs so people don't internalize the label of criminal into their identity. And so this article promotes and shows support for that theory. Some of you said you were interested in immigration enforcement. So this is an article that analyzes a specific program around immigration control called the Secure Communities Program. And this program helps people, or helps local law enforcement coordinate and collaborate with the federal government in detaining immigrants for the federal government for deportation. And so the article is sort of addressing the political arguments against and for this program and really testing them. And a lot of you are also interested in juvenile justice. And so I pulled this article about how the courtroom work group is. So the courtroom work group is all of the people involved within court proceedings. So the stenographer, the judge, the public defender, the prosecutor, sort of how they relate to each other. And this particular study did qualitative interviews, which are, like we will learn in the course, more open and conversational, and the researchers may have learned about new topics that they weren't expecting, because there's less of behind the scenes design aspect to qualitative studies and less defining and categorizing and more exploration of, okay, what are the issues? Let's talk to the people directly impacted. So they did interviews with people within the courtroom work group to figure out sort of if the juvenile justice reforms that were being implemented were actually being implemented. So this is part of an example of application research. And finally, here's an article about problem-oriented policing, which is another policing strategy like hotspot policing, but a little different, where police really think about the problems of people in that local area. And there's more like a clientele relationship in which people are brainstorming, all right, how do we get to the root cause of these issues that are recurrent and actually address them? And it's also more open to like social service work and policing as well. And so this tests whether or not that specific strategy is great. Alrighty, so these were some examples, and hopefully you can take these and get some inspiration for how you'll write your own reflection memo and what type of research articles you may be interested in looking at.